Lektaleshe, Bameayash, Binti Awilalik, Wokol Awalik, Yuunte Labai Behonte Ekope, Yuunte Taleshe. That's my indigenous Maya Celtal language, with which I am bowing to the Ohlone, Ramaytush, and Muwekma tribes, who are the original stewards of these lands, and to my own Nahua and Maya peoples of the highlands of Chiapas in Mexico, where I was born and raised. It is with that oral language that breaks concrete and through my heart reaches yours, minds, hearts, bodies, and spirits in this Wisdom 2.0 family. I speak my indigenous languages because cultural diversity is a key determinant of planetary health and flourishing, as we lose one indigenous language every 2 weeks. So my talk today bridges indigenous sciences with Western information technologies. But before that, I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to be a familiar story. It's a story about awe and love and sacredness, and also loss and grief and awareness and the power it has for collective transformation. So I was born and raised in these lands, El Paraíso Cuelja, which translates in English as the wonderlands of flowing waters in the highlands of Chiapas in Mexico. Woohoo! So, El Paraíso was 3/4 forest, maize, and coffee beans, and 1/4 dreams. During the day, the sun released the scent of moistened glory, lucid greening, and effervescent dynamism. It was the time of action and expansion. Nighttime was more subtle, soothing, moonlight calmer. It was the time for the mysterious and the stories. My grandparents had the gift of healing. They got it from their grandmas, who got it from their grandpas, who got it from the very roots of Mother Earth. They welcomed both rosy-fingered dawns and storms the same. As medicine people, they listened to the wisdom of the trees, the chants of the wind, the whims of seasons breaks, the gossip of the birds. They tended Mother Earth with the kindest care, as should be done with the dwelling of the ancestors. Their intimate and expansive senses were fluid, almost elemental. Through them, I learned to let go into the beautiful pitch blackness of the soil and the vast brightness of the skies. In the forest lands and earthen caves and starlit nights, I learned about transcendence and the contemplative life. And with these, I mean to engage in deep observation and reflection, to find the core insights of belonging, transcending our very narrow self-identity and expanding into a circle of care that includes all of spirit life. But that wonderland was lost to dispossession. Our spirit medicines were turned into pills, extracted, appropriated, capitalized, only for access of the privileged. And my own ancestors transitioned into other forms of life 20 years earlier due to the life expectancy of indigenous peoples being the lowest the world over. I myself had to leave my forest in the clouds to study in colonial educations, in languages that weren't my own, spoken by people that insisted I didn't belong. So finding home has been a lifelong challenge and therefore a constant source of inquiry. I grew up hearing persistent narratives of inadequacy and doubt imposed upon me by a classist, racist, patriarchal society glorifying colonial heritage. And it has been an equally long journey to try to shake those stories off from crawling underneath my skin. Perhaps that's why dreaming comes naturally to those of us who have been othered. Dreaming is the chrysalis of hope, where time without time is unleashed, where we set ourselves free. In the face of impossibility, we learn we can fly. So in those migratory routes, I've been seeking the voices of the holy, finding kin in sharing stories of meaning and the nature of reality. And I landed here, a sort of spore flying in the air to reach these lands, perhaps, to enhance our planetary intelligence. And while both science and spirituality feel quite remarkably familiar, I've never really felt quite fitting. That's a familiar reaction, having been a misfit from childhood with my one wing in the wilderness and the other in the magical realism of indigenous culture. So when nobody looked like me or spoke of the songs I've heard in childhood, I did what I've always done. I rebelled. But not for confrontation, but because my stories are way greater than myself. And if the stories hold truth, they'll resonate as a silver bowl. So thank you, Soren, for welcoming these stories in this space, because not willingly everyone holds space for these stories, especially if they carry burning truth. So I persist, insist, and persevere only to find time and again dismissal, discrimination, push for assimilation, extraction, exploitation, and many other horror stories about my peoples and my own bodies shredded to tears. And still, I keep getting up. If only a tad more bruised. So, such an elusive art to point the water to the fish. In this sea of myriad voices, lucid, well-versed, and articulate, mine still feels too raw. But then again, my voice goes beyond the single seed. It comes from and goes back into the ancestors, into our lands, into our Mother Earth. It is her one voice who sings to the seed about the forest, who incites the spark into the wildfire. So that's why I say that this art of contemplation is our shared home. It is a subtle home that sings about impermanence as dynamic natural cycles, about kin relationality, echoing, flourishing, and conciliation, nurturing, belonging. So this is a life choice, relentlessly questioning how we perceive, how we appraise. It allows us to compose stories and sow seeds of new, shared narratives. So yes, we do carry intergenerational trauma and also intergenerational bliss. So I share these words now rooted and embodied, knowing we can fly, keeping this home that cares to listen, question, and with the utmost gentleness, respond. So this is my work toward epistemological equity, bridging Western science into indigenous sciences. And pay attention that I said sciences in plural, because there's not just one universal way of understanding the world. There's a myriad array of ways of learning about the world, and that's what indigenous sciences bring. These methods of rigorous observation expressed in narratives and imagination, along with theories, hypotheses, and testing. So telling you a little bit about what indigenous sciences entail. They are expressed in narratives, oral or embodied or collective narratives. They are nonlinear, ideas about causality, mostly qualitative, subjective, so it's about a dialogue between subjects. It's not a science that separates an object of study, but that understands that there is agency and sentience in that subject and relates with that subject so that both be transformed. Also, indigenous sciences are contextual, culturally diverse. There's no one unique, universal way. And most times, the benefit of indigenous sciences are for the collective. So it looks into planetary well-being. It's not a science that is focusing on benefit humans, or owning or controlling creation, or even worse, to dominate through utilitarian and transactional relationships. So we want transcendence, not transactions. So I am urging you all that we transcend what we now know as AI, artificial intelligence, to an AI of an awakened intelligence, an intelligence of awe, a wink to Dakar's world, an intelligence that embraces the mysteries of life, an intelligence of reverence that is the result of bridging together systems of knowledge. And this notion of the awakened or awe intelligence finds a home in my work of the ethics of belonging. It advances our technologies for the benefit not of individuals or corporations, or even for our narrow species, but that makes a place of belonging for all our relative beings and phenomena in our shared mother planet. So this ethics of belonging is a system of integration that cultivates this awareness of relationality, being participants of all the decision-making that impacts all of our lives. I love thinking of the ethics of belonging as opening our eyes of wonder with its streams of marvel, claiming the world unfolding, weaving mystery and inquiry, and leaving a sense of sacredness with the vastness of life precious, raw within our heart. So this ethics of belonging has two main concepts: kin relationality, which is a way of embracing all of existence, including phenomena, as kin, as family. For example, you may find in indigenous communities the world over very similar ways, ontologies, that perceive the planet as a mother, as a giver, as a nurturer, and all of creation as kin. And then the second concept is ecological belonging, which is the realization that we are indeed part of all of these systems. So from an indigenous perspective, any person's flourishing or well-being depends on planetary flourishing. So our compassion is not only for the suffering of other humans, but for the suffering of our Mother Earth and her skies and oceans and corals and soils. So let me insist that there is no such thing as human flourishing unless there is Mother Earth flourishing first. And one of the ways that I have been applying this ethics of belonging in what problematics are out there in the world is in the defense of the rights of indigenous peoples to our tangible and intangible heritage that is being violated profoundly through what the West calls psychedelics, which are medicines that do not manifest the human mind, but manifest spirit, the animating principle of life. So we, as a group, put up this paper. It's one of the third most read papers in The Lancet this year, creating a statement of how we are warning Western communities of the dire perils of extracting all these medicines that fundamentally transforms a person's identity and ontologies when there is no context, container to protect these peoples. So yes, we pay attention, and all we see, all we hear, all we sense is urgency. I work at the UN with the rights of indigenous peoples and the rights of nature. So I see firsthand the statistics of the total destruction and social despair of our planet. So the challenges are indeed innumerable, but also infinite are the opportunities. Our grief is daunting, but heartening is our compassion. We course a cosmic webbing holding awe and horror, wonder and doubt, creation and transition, othering and belonging. And these abysmal forms are love in all its possibilities. So let love guide fear to safety, anger into action, grief into meaning, despair to transformation. From love, all injuries heal. They repair, they restore. Bridges open. Because our whole bodies open and trust can emerge. So let's love evoke that holding gentle of Mother Earth, her caring gaze and her smiling. And we smile back because we are indeed sensing her. Now, life, she still ripples. She hums, pulses, quivers, murmurs under the skies. And now we ripple, we hum, pulse, quiver, we murmur under the skies. Tlazokamati, Hokolawal. Gracias. Thank you.